Hello guys, welcome to today's tutorial. In this tutorial today, I'm going to be covering the essential and important tools in CorelDraw. So as listed on my screen right now, you can see we have the pick tools, we have the shape tool, the crop tool, the zoom tool, the freehand tools, the artistic media, the rectangle tools, ellipse tool, the polygon tools, the text tool, parallel dimension tool, connector tool, shadow tool, transparency tool, color eyedropper tool, interactive tool, outline pen. Then we are going to be talking about the varieties of each tool. So that is what I mean by flyout. You can see the pick tool right here has varieties. So if I click on this small arrow that is at the angle here, you can see it shows the varieties of that tools. Okay, so this is called flyout. All right, if you are visiting my channel for the first time, thank you for stopping by, and if you are a returning subscriber, I want to say thank you for viewing this tutorial once again. Now let's start with pick tool. So what does this pick tool do? It enables you to select an object. So if I click on pick tool right here and I click on this object, for instance, you can see if I click on this object, I can easily move this object around by clicking on it and drag. Okay, now immediately you click on it, you can see these nodes around it, and if you have to adjust this object, you can easily click on this node and drag inward, and you can also drag it outward. Now if I click on this object once again, you can see that this node will change to a rotation handle. Okay, so this enables you to be able to rotate this object. Okay, so if I'm clicking on this, I can move and turn this object just the way I like it, and if I want to return back to the original position of the object, I can Ctrl Z on my keyboard. Now another thing you have to pay attention to is this center right here. When you click on it and you have those nodes around it, you have small star in the middle which denotes the center of the object. So if I move my mouse on this star, you can see center comes up, so that shows that is the center of the object. But if I click on this object again, that star changes to a rippled circle, and this is called the rotation point. If I have to rotate this object, that is the point at which this object will be rotating. You can see it is like this object is fixed to this particular point, but if I want to change the point of rotation, then I can click on this rotation point and change the position. So for instance, I'm moving it down to this point and I decide to rotate this object again, you can see that the rotation point will change. If I move it again to another point, you can see that becomes the point of rotation. And another thing you have to take note of here is that when I click, of course, you have the nodes. The nodes are 8 in number. Now if I click again, it turns to a rotation undo. By the angles we have the rotation undo, but by the sides we have the skewing handles, which simply means you can use the rotation undo to rotate the object, but you can use the skew undo to skew the object. By the side, you can see the skew undo here, the skew undo is here, the skew undo is here, the skewing undo is also here. If I click on this skewing undo and drag it up, you can see it will skew this object. Okay, so let me Ctrl Z. If I do the same right here, it will skew this object. Now if you want to select more than one object in your CorelDraw, you can click on the first object, then hold your shift key on your keyboard and click the next object. Now if I click and drag, you can see the two objects are selected together. If you want to select more than two objects also, this is the same process you are going to repeat. All right, now if you want to select all objects on your CorelDraw space, then you can go back to the pick tool and double click on it. You can see all objects on your CorelDraw space will be selected. So you can see all objects on your CorelDraw space will be selected. Now for instance, you want to select object that is under another object. So let me draw these objects right here. So let's assume I'm having this circle and a rectangle. I'm having this rectangle. Let me give them color so that we can differentiate them. I'm having this circle covering the rectangle that is under it, but I want to select the rectangle that is under this circle. So what do? You hold your shift key and click on the circle. You can see it will select what is under the circle and not the circle. So I can move this away from under the circle. Now let's assume that I'm grouping these two objects together. Let me bring this one to the front. All right, so let's assume I want to select these two objects together. I can also draw marquee around it. Just click anywhere on your workspace and draw around it, then it will select the two objects together. Then I want to group these two objects together. I'll press Ctrl G, okay, and also you can right click on it and group and ungroup, okay, but the shortcut is Ctrl G. So you can see these two objects are grouped together, they are not separate. Let's assume that I want to select an object in a group of objects. What do? While clicking on your pick tool, hold your control key and click on the object that you want to select. So you can see that the circle is selected. If I want to select the rectangle, I hold my control key and click on the rectangle. So I can move this rectangle around as if it is not in a group, but originally it is in a group. So if I click outside and click on the circle again, you can see that the circle is still grouped with the rectangle. All right, so let's move to the next tool, and the next tool is Shape Tool. With Shape Tool, you can shape an object. Now I will be using this image for an example. So let me duplicate this image right here. You can see, copying this image right here, I can shape this image. So when I click on Shape Tool, you can see that there are nodes around this image. What I mean by nodes, there are these small dots around it. Now to create another node, I can double click along the line. You can see a node is created here. If I want to create another node, I will double click, and if I want to delete that same node, I'll double click on the node again. So if I double click on the node, it will delete the node. Even this node right here, if I double click on it, it will delete it. Now let me Ctrl Z. Now if I want to shape this, image right here, I can click the node and drag it inward. You can see right here, I can click the node and drag it inward to shape these objects. So you can do more of that. And also, if I click on the Shape Tool, because the head is curved in a way, I can also click on the node, right click on it, and change it to curve. Okay, so when I click change to curve, you can see that node can become a curve, so that when I want to shape out the head, I can change this node also to curve, so that when I want to shape out the head, I can easily achieve that curve. Okay, so you can use this to trace out an image. Now let's move to the next one. So under this Shape Tool, we have a flyout, we have smooth, smear, twirl, attract and repel, smuggle and roughen. But the most important here, I think, is smooth. So what does this do? Let me zoom this in. Okay, so when I click on the smooth, you can use it to smoothen an edge. Okay, so you can see that edge is smoothing. Let me Ctrl Z so that you can see it very well. You can see that this is an angle, but you can use a smooth tool to smoothen it down. You can see it will turn that edge to a curve. So this is actually useful if you are trying to shaping out that head part so that it can curve and give you the shape of the head. All right, so let's move to the next one. Let's move to crop. With the crop tool, you can easily crop an image. So now I'm going to click on crop. Then you can easily draw out the area you want to retain. So I'm retaining only this image. Okay, so I'm retaining this only this image. You can adjust it. Now when you draw out the parts that you want to keep, just double click on it. Okay, you can see that image is cropped. This is the original image right here, and this is the cropped image. So this will enable you to be able to crop an image. Let's move to knife. With knife, you can cut through an object. Okay, so when I click on knife and I click and drag, press enter on my keyboard, then you can see that this image has been cut into two. That is what knife does. And the next one is virtual segment delete. Virtual segment delete, you can use it to achieve any kind of shape that you want to achieve. So for instance, we are having something like this. You can delete a segment. Okay, so with virtual segment delete, you can delete a segment. You can see delete. I can delete this. I can delete this. It will delete not the entire side, it will delete up to where there's an intersection. So let's move down to eraser. Clicking on the eraser, if I have to erase this part that is having the flower out of this image, I can easily click on it and drag over the flower. You can see that the flower is completely removed. Okay, so you can use that to erase a part of the object. Now let's move to zoom tool. So under the zoom tool, we have zoom and pan. Okay, so when you click on zoom, it enables you to magnify your objects. You can zoom in, you can zoom out. So if I want to zoom in, just click and drag around it. So I want to zoom to this circle, so I'm zooming into the circle alone, so I can see all other circle. And if you want to zoom out, you want to see all other objects on your screen, you can right click. So when you right click, it will zoom out, but when you left click, it will zoom in. For instance, you zoom in like this, and maybe some objects on your screen are hidden and you want to bring them back. You can double click on the zoom tool. So when you double click, it will bring back all objects back to your screen. And for instance, maybe you zoom and you want to maintain this view, but you want to be able to pan around and see other objects. Then you can come to the fly out here and click on pan or press H on your keyboard. Then you can click and just drag to the objects that you want to see. So you can see, you can just pan around your workspace. All right, so that is that about zoom tool and pan. Now let's move to freehand tool. With freehand tool, you can write or you can decide to draw anything with freehand tool. So clicking on the freehand tool, I can decide to use this one to maybe impute signature. Okay, so you can see I can impute signature. So what I have to do is just to click and write as if I'm using my pen. But if you want to draw a straight line, then you can click the first point and move to the next point and click. So this will give you a straight line. Now let's move to rectangle tool. If I click on the rectangle tool, we can draw a rectangular shape by simply clicking on the workspace and drag it. Okay, so you can see this is the rectangular shape. But if you want to draw a square shape, you hold your control on your keyboard and draw it. You can see the four sides will be equal to each other. Then we can move to the next one, which is the ellipse tool, or you can call it a circle, but it is an ellipse because when you draw without holding control key on your keyboard, it gives you an ellipse. But if you hold control key on your keyboard, it gives you a perfect circle. And also with this ellipse, you can go to the property bar at the top here and click on this arc, then it will form an arc. And you can also adjust this arc by clicking here. You can see you can adjust this arc, and you can also turn this to a pi on the property bar here. You can change this to pi. Okay, you can see it right here. So those are the things you can do with your ellipse tool. Now let's move to polygon tools. So under polygon tools, we have varieties. Under the fly out, we have the polygon, we have the star, we have the spiral, we have the common shapes, and they are very simple to draw also. So what you just have to do is just to click on it, then click on your workspace and drag, then the shape will be drawn for you. And if you want to draw any other shape that is under the fly out, you can see, for instance, the star. If I click on the star and click and drag, then it draws the start for me. Then another tool that I would love to show you here under this flyout is impact tool. Okay, so this is impact tool. So if I draw the impact tool, it is like a splash of water. You can see now if I bring this ball here, you can see that it is looking nice. I can also use it to display motion. I can come to this radius and change it to parallel. Okay, so you can see parallel. It seems like that ball is shot into the air. Okay, so let me just zoom it, and this impact tool is giving us this idea that the ball is in motion. All right, so let's move to the next important one, which is the text tool. So with that tool, you are able to write in CorelDraw, and we have two major types of text in CorelDraw. We have the first one to be the artistic text, and we have the other one to be paragraph text. So I'm going to show you the two and how to manipulate them right here. If I'm clicking on this text tool, now I can decide to click on my workspace and begin to type. All right, then if I'm typing, it will continue typing. It will continue typing, then it will go out of my workspace. You can see my workspace here. It will go out of my workspace. So this type of text is called artistic text. It doesn't break until you break it. So if I click here, for instance, and press enter on my keyboard, then it will break that line of text. But if I don't break it, it will continue to write without breaking. But this is unlike the paragraph text. So if I want to use my paragraph text, what I have to do is just to click and drag to draw a marquee. You can see the dotted rectangle that is drawn. That is called a marquee. And whatever I'm writing right now, it will not go beyond that imaginary box because it is a paragraph text. It will continue to break the line of text by itself. So those are the two major types of text that we have in CorelDraw, the artistic and the paragraph text. I'm still under the usage of text tool. For instance, I have this circle here and I want to write a group of text around this circle. So what I have to do, let me zoom in. You can see that we have the thin line of the circle. So we have the inner part and the outer part of the circle. Now, if I'm moving this text tool inward, you can see that an icon is forming like a dotted rectangle. But if I move the text tool outside, you can see that it forms another thing. It is not like a dotted rectangle. Now, if I want to work with this icon, then if I click, whatever I'm writing will be writing fitting to the part of that circle. Okay, so let me fit to the screen. Okay, so you can see right now that whatever I've written is fitting to the part of that circle. Now, another thing I can do is clicking while this dotted icon is showing. Now, if I click on it, then it will form an imaginary dotted circle inside for me to write. So whatever I want to write, I can write inside and it will not go beyond this circle. It will form paragraph when it touches the wall of that circle. So those are the things you can do with text tool. So the next tool here is table, and it is very simple and self-explanatory. Once you click on your table, it is a fly out under text tool. When you click on the table, just click and drag it, then you can draw your table. You can also increase the number of the columns and rows of the table by coming to the property bar here. You can see we have 3 by 4. So if I increase this or decrease it, you can see that the row is increasing. Then I can also increase or decrease the column also. So that is that about our table. Then the next one is parallel dimension tool. This tool enables us to be able to measure parallel objects. So for instance, I have a rectangle here and I click on parallel dimension tool. I just want to measure the size of this rectangle. So what I would do is just to come to the first edge, click on it and drag it to the next edge. So when you release your button, then you move it outward and click. So you can see right here that the dimension is appearing right here. So we have 0.25 inches. The dimension is in inches. You can change it to any unit of your choice. All right, so let's move to the flyout. Under this parallel dimension, we have horizontal or vertical dimension, we have angular dimension, segment dimension, we have leg call out. So let me run through that. So the horizontal or vertical dimension, it is either vertical or horizontal. So you can click at any point and drag it outward. You can see at the point that is a horizontal dimension. You can measure from one wall to another wall, and if you want to measure it vertically, you can also measure from this edge and drag it downward, then drop it right here. You can see it will measure it for you. And also, if you want to measure an angle, so you can come under the flyout here of the parallel dimension tool and click on angular dimension. Then you click on the angle where the two lines are meeting. Then you move to the wall of the first one. You can see it right here, to the first wall of the first one. Then release it and move to the wall of the second one and double click it right here. So you can see we have 90 degree, which is very, very correct because this is a right angle, which is 90 degree. All right, so that is that about parallel dimension tool. Then we also have leg call out. This will enable you to be able to label your object. So for instance, I've drawn this and I want to label it. I can easily come under this flyout and click on call out. Then I will come to the edge and draw it outside just the way I want it. I can draw it anyhow I want it and click. So you can see, then the cursor will be there for you to type. So you can type anything you want as your label. All right, so that is that under parallel dimension tool. So let's move to the shadow tool. So with the shadow tool, you can drop shadow an object. For instance, I'm having this circle right here on my screen. Now I want to give it a kind of shadow perspective. So what I will do is to go to my shadow tool, click on it, then I can move from the center of this object downward. Okay, so you can see the drop shadow has appeared. Then I can decide to adjust with this undo. You can see this black undo. I can click on it and move it to wherever I want it to move to. So if the light is coming from the left hand side, then the shadow will be at the right hand side, and vice versa. So I can move the shadow to this side, and I can control the thickness and the lightness of the shadow with this undo right here. You can see if I move it inward, then the shadow will be lighter, and if I move it outward, the shadow will be thicker. Okay, so that is that about shadow drop. Then we also have contour. So I'm going to practicalize that with this. So let's go under the flyout of shadow tool. We have contour. With contour, you can create multiple steps of a particular shape. What you have to do is just to click and drag from outside inward. Okay, so you can see it will create multiple steps. Then you can also determine the number of steps that are created with this undo right here. So if I move and drag it inward, you can see that we now have multiple steps that are created. Then let's move to the next one. The next one is blend. Okay, so this enables you to blend two objects together. So for instance, I'm having a circle right here and I'm having a rectangle right here. So let me just give them different color, and I want to blend them together. So I will come to the blend tool, click on it, and drag from the first object to the second object. So you can see the two objects are blended together. Then the next object under the flyout of shadow tool is distort. Okay, so this will simply enable you to be able to distort an object. Okay, so if I draw this and I click on Distortion Tool and click on it and begin to move the Distortion Tool, you can see that it has distorted that rectangle tool. And the next one is Extrude Tool. Extrude Tools enables you to be able to create a three-dimensional shape of a particular shape. For instance, we have a rectangle here. I can apply an Extrude Tool on this by simply clicking on it and drag it downward. You can see, okay, let me give it a color. You can see giving it a color. Now I can drag it upward. You can see that it is creating a 3D shape of that rectangle. Okay, so the next one is block shadow. We've already talked about drop shadow before. Then we have block shadow, which is thicker than drop shadow. So it's just to click on it and drag it downward. You can see that this shadow is very thick and it is thicker than normal drop shadow. You can also use this to create a 3D form of a particular image. So the next one is transparency tool. It enables you to determine the transparency of an object. So for instance, I have this rectangle here and I want it to be light in color. For instance, I'm having it blue and I want it to be transparent. So what I will do is to click on transparency tool and click on the object and drag on it. So you can see that one side is lighter than the other, but I can control if I want one part to be lighter than the other or I want them to be even. So on the property bar right here, so I can make it a uniform transparency. And also here you can see this transparency is 50%, so I can increase it and I can decrease the transparency. It depends on what you want. And also you can determine that you don't want transparency to be uniform and you can adjust it with this handle right here. Okay, so that is that about transparency. Then we can move also to color eyedropper tool. So color eyedropper tool enables you to copy color from one object to another. So let's assume I'm having an ellipse here and I just want to copy one color from this image here and paste on the ellipse. So what I will do is just to go to the color eyedropper tool, click on it, then click on the object. You can see I want to copy from this object. So let me see, I want to copy this flower color. So if I click on it and go to the ellipse and click on it, then it will paste the color. That is what color eyedropper tool does. It allows you to be able to copy a color from an object to another object. So the next important tool is interactive fill tool. So for instance, we are having just one color here. So let me give it blue color, but I don't want it to be one color. I just want to mix this color. I want it to be a mixture of two colors. So what I can do right here is just to come to interactive fill tool, click on it, then click on the object and drag it. So you can see I'm having one part lighter than the other. Now I can treat both parts separately. So if I'm clicking on this node right here, you can see this will pop up for me to select any kind of color that I want. And if I don't want to choose my color from here, I can also come to the color palette here and choose any color of my choice. And the second handle here also, I can choose any color for it. So I can mix two colors together with interactive fill tool, and with the handle in the middle here, I can adjust the intensity of the color. And these are the basic tools and essential tools in CorelDraw. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and I would love to see you in my next video. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel and I will see you in my next video. Thank you for watching this tutorial.